bent. Nigga, where am I going? Drop the four in my cup, now I'm floating. I can't feel a thing, to be real, I just go through the motions. Where am I going? Nigga, I'm in deep like the ocean. I've been in my bag, everybody around me, I'm ghosting. Where am I going? Drop the four in my cup, now I'm floating. I can't feel a thing, to be real, I just go through the motions. Where am I going?
We are going to another episode of HardFoul Radio. This is the show that values time and puts God first. Appreciate everybody for joining in. As always, let's get started. So today is a very special day, and I'm going to save this for the closing of the show, but it's the 19-year anniversary of Kobe Bryant's 81-point game, and we're going to get into this a bit later in the show, or at the end of the show. But it's just one of those things that are just such a unique moment in sports. Forget the numbers, forget the player. It's one of those beautiful things that have ever happened in the history of sports. And I just really want to deep dive on that later in the show because it's what I feel truly in my heart of hearts has been missing from a lot of sports media as of late. So I really want to emphasize and hit that point home. So with that being said, let's get started. Stories are important. I believe that. Stories in sports, stories in the real world, obviously literature, stories are just a huge deal. And the way that we can tell these stories and the people that we trust to tell these stories matters a lot. You're going to have people who are going to come away from this, both AFC and NFC Championship game, who have all kinds of different narratives and headlines. But I want to discuss the stories of each of these teams. We're going to discuss the NFC at the start of hour 2. We're going to talk about the AFC Championship game, the story of both teams, and the story of this game. Let's start with the Bills. I know the Kansas City Chiefs are 2-time defending champs, so you should start with them, but let's start with the Bills. The story of the Buffalo Bills is that almost, not quite, so close franchise. You could argue them and the Vikings have as much true success as you can have in the National Football League historically without ever having held up a Lombardi. The story of Jim Kelly, 4 straight Super Bowls, only team to ever do that and lose all 4 of them. So close. The team who ended up, and this is something that the modern day AFC West has to deal with, you have Tom Brady in your division for 20 plus years. The greatest quarterback we've ever seen. You watched the Dolphins have Dan Marino. You even watched the Jets during the late 2000s. Sanchez, that great O-line, multiple AFC Championship games, Darrelle Revis. You've seen everybody around you have success. And that's no different now. When you're at your absolute peak, Josh Allen, who all respect to Jim Kelly, Josh Allen is the greatest quarterback in Bills history. From a physical perspective, from a talent perspective, he's the best. And he coincides with 3 other franchises also having their best quarterback ever. Joe Burrow with the Bengals, who's beaten Josh Allen in the playoffs. Lamar Jackson, who he just overcame last weekend with the Baltimore Ravens. And of course, 15 in Kansas City, Patrick Mahomes. The story of the Buffalo Bills is the team that just can't wait for its breakthrough. I know this has been really popular on Twitter the last week, and we should normalize switching sports teams. I can't think of a fan base that could be less true than fans of the Buffalo Bills. You don't get to have the level of excitement and euphoria and joy that would come from this team finally breaking through. The just immense amount of emotions if in 3 weeks Josh Allen's holding up a Super Bowl trophy. Could you imagine if you've been a Bills fan and you're in your 30s or 40s and you've seen Jim Kelly lose 4 times and you had to see Tom Brady dominate the entire NFL for 20 years? Now it's your turn. You're 0-3 against Mahomes. You had the classic 13-second game. You've lost to Joe Burrow. It feels like, man, can we finally break through? This was supposed to be Josh Allen's breakthrough year. All year, the media's hyped up. He's the MVP. He's the MVP. And I don't want to discredit him here. I've been very clear and consistent on my opinion that Lamar's been the MVP of the National Football League. And I think Lamar getting that AP vote is another thing for the Bills where it's so close, just not quite there. If Josh Allen can break through this game and he gets the Bills, and I think whichever team, with no disrespect to the NFC, I think whichever team wins this game, this is the Super Bowl. If Josh Allen can be the first guy to break the almost franchise, you know what story that sounds like? Almost like the guy who got back in media news a few weeks ago who said, my greatest mistake ever was not drafting Josh Allen. And that would be John Elway. Because John Elway, the Broncos before Elway, were the team so close but can't get it done. And when they got Elway, they started getting to Super Bowls and they were getting blown out. Could get to the game, can't get over the hump. Until finally, 97, 98, back-to-back championships, Elway had to fight through Marino, Kelly, Aikman and the Cowboys, Joe Montana Niners, all these other great historical quarterbacks. Sound familiar? Again, Montana, Marino, Kelly. Sounds a lot like Burrow, Lamar, Mahomes. This is the story of the Buffalo Bills. And the story for a fan base that has been waiting for so long for that breakthrough. And is this going to be the time? I'm not going to give you picks. I'm not going to tell you who should win. And I'm not going to give you player props. But I could give you the story of the Buffalo Bills. And that's who they are. The so close franchise that finally has a chance to break through. Now let's shift over to the story of the Kansas City Chiefs. Now the Chiefs won a Super Bowl. They are the first team not named Green Bay to win a Super Bowl. So the Chiefs had early success. And then they fell into this almost rudderless form of a franchise, especially when it came to quarterbacks and offense for nearly 50 years. Mahomes was the first guy. Mahomes just passed this year. Len Dawson in total quarterback wins by a Chiefs quarterback. He was also the first-round quarterback since Len Dawson to record a win for them. Mahomes has been to this franchise that went through decades of suffering. And they had great players. They had Derek Thomas on defense. They had Tony Gonzalez at that end. They were not short of great players. Dante Hall, the amazing kick returner. One of the longest owned teams by an individual family in the NFL. Hunts have had him forever. And then they get Mahomes, who's their breakthrough guy. That's there for the comparison, which he will be compared the rest of his career. That's their Brady. The guy who brought Super Bowls. The guy who has brought all the success, who has made them the biggest show in the NFL. It's interesting, too, because the Chiefs fans have taken this more presumptuous position now, and they're like, oh, everyone's just jealous of us. Everyone's just mad at us. Oh, they just can't stand the fact that we're winning. It's interesting because I believe the Chiefs were like this for a lot of other teams for years. The Chiefs knew they had great players, but they also couldn't just quite get over the hump. They had old success to fall back on, but nothing relevant for anyone of this age group or this generation to really go, that's why I'm proud to be a Chiefs fan. The story of the Kansas City Chiefs is this is their time. This is their time. And again, I'm not going to give you a score. I'm not going to give you player props. I'm here to give you a story. Every franchise, historically, when it comes to winning championships, they are in clusters and then long droughts. You get teams that win. New England, they got 6 in 20 years. They had none before, and who knows how long until they get more. The Steelers, 4 in 6 years. The Niners, 4 in 6 years. The Cowboys, What's the stat everyone loves right now? Everyone's making fun of the Cowboys because now that Washington's made it, they're the only team this century that hasn't been to a conference championship from the NFC. Teams get a lot in a short window, and then it goes away. The only outlier in New England is truly the outlier. That many in that long of a window. But most of these teams are picking up their 3 or 4 rings during their dynastic run with their dynastic-esque player at the peak of his powers. The Steelers with their defense, the Cowboys, Aikman, Emmitt Smith, Michael Irvin, the Niners, Montana, Rice. So the story of the Kansas City Chiefs is very similar to that of every other dynasty that has existed in the history of the NFL. The history of the Chiefs is what the Niners did in the 80s, what the Cowboys did in the 90s, what the Steelers did in the 70s. And even though they're an outlier because of the length of Brady's career, you could argue very similar and exactly like that first Patriots run 3 and 4 years. What they're doing is what you're supposed to do when you have someone this great. And I know a lot of us like to complain, and I'm a Chiefs hater. You want to blame the refs. You want to say it's rigged. You want to say the fix is in. You want to say it's not fair. And I'll be right there to complain with you because I don't like them either. I'll be honest. But this is what happens when you have the Steelers, all-time dynastic dominant defense, the Cowboys, all-time dynastic offensive line plus those 3 playmakers, the Niners, maybe the guy who was the consensus greatest quarterback and the guy who was the consensus greatest player ever, along with the greatest safety ever, and then the Patriots with the now greatest quarterback ever and greatest head coach ever. We are now seeing the next in line, the current dynasty, the Kansas City Chiefs. We've seen the story before, but everyone gets their turn. In the very long book that is the NFL, everyone gets their turn. Well, most franchises. Welcome in. It's another wonderful day. It is a Wednesday. Sorry, I'm a little sick. Wife's sick, so going around a little bit. When we come back, again, it is story time all the way around. Now, Chiefs fans, I gave you guys some props. I appreciate, in the history of the NFL, this is a wonderful story in the grand scheme of things, but we do need to address your fans because what is going on with like this kiss the ring culture shit? I don't get it. I don't plan to get it. I'm not going to act like I get it. And also, Ben Johnson, the Fish Chicago Bears, we discussed that and more. This is HardFoul Radio. We'll be back momentarily. This is definitely a case of expectations. There is no expectations. Drake Mace, we can go out there. He can throw the ball around. Even though he's throwing game-ending interceptions, it doesn't matter. Caleb Williams, who has played some of the best, worst football ever, like, he's not throwing interceptions. And this is definitely a case of expectations. There is no expectations. Drake Mace, we can go out there. He can throw the. And we are back. This is HardFoul Radio. Appreciate everybody for tuning in as always. Chiefs fans, I gave you your love. I gave you your props. I said I gave you my story about where your franchise currently sits, and you are the dynasty. You deserve all that. Congratulations. Now, this is not story related. This is just reality, which is the reality of why do Chiefs fans, and maybe I'm just blind to it. I wasn't old enough to really understand it because I don't feel like I got this from Patriots fans. Patriots fans were obnoxious. Patriots fans were assholes. But I never felt like Patriots fans were blatant kiss the ring culture. So now, it's one thing when a player, Klay Thompson very famously, when he gets upset, he points at his hand and goes, I got 4 of these. You can't do anything. I got 4 of these. It's one thing for a player to do it because those are their actual accolades. Those are their actual accomplishments. They put in blood, sweat, tears, time, effort, etc., etc., etc. to make that stuff happen. It's another thing when fans want you to be like, and Twitter's its own cesspool of opinions and stuff like that, and this really isn't a Twitter thing. This is like, there's actual analysts on television and actual analysts on YouTube when they have podcasts and they're Chiefs fans, and we know the big one. We all know the number one Chiefs fan out there who's on TV. And they want it to be almost this kiss the ring experience of like, oh, you guys are not just jealous of the Chiefs. You're making stuff up about the Chiefs. You are not respecting the Chiefs. When was it ever a job of another fan base to respect what your team is doing? When has that ever been the case in the history of the billion of you? There's 7 billion of us in the history of our timeline here on Earth as people and human beings. When has that ever been our purpose as an opposing fan base to say, yeah, you know what, you did great? There's some respect factor post the dominant run going on. We all respect Tom Brady. A lot of us didn't like Tom Brady in real time. We all respect Michael Jordan. A lot of people didn't like Michael Jordan in real time. He's winning all the titles. We all respect Steph Curry, LeBron, throw it up. Like, you know, I just talked about the other dynasties like Joe Montana, Jerry Rice, the Steelers. Those are respected after the fact. I guarantee in real time, and I know for a fact in real time, we didn't like the Patriots. We might have said different things, and because of Spygate and Deflategate and all these other things, we had some extra ammo to go at the Patriots. Called them cheaters, called them unfair. Bill Belichick couldn't be on Madden. We laughed at that. Did the Patriots care? Did fans of the Patriots care? No. They kept winning their 11, 12 games a year. Kept going to the playoffs. Kept getting to Super Bowls in both the front and back end of Brady's career. Kept making your favorite team look stupid when it came time for the biggest game of the season. Tom got 7 rings. Bill got 6 rings. Gronk has 4. Like, the fans didn't care. And it's not another. Do you think the Bears fans were hyping up when Aaron Rodgers out here winning MVPs when they went to a Super Bowl? No. It's an opposing fan base. They're not supposed to give a rip about what you're thinking. And this whole idea of you have to kiss the ring, you have to respect it. No, we don't. The reality is no, we don't. And we are going to pull the things that we think are BS and cheap shots. We are going to hold those against you. The same way Deflategate in real time might as well have been a national emergency or a national crime. That's how big fans took it. And the media helped push some of that. You got Deflategate, another one. Could have been Deflategate might as well have been Fort Knox getting broken into. This is the level that these things were escalated to, elevated to. There wasn't this kiss the ring idea of we have to respect you. No, F you. We don't have to respect it. especially when it's, again, we are going to hold the ref things against you. Especially when Chiefs fans, listen, Chiefs fans. I know that because you are the current target of the NFL, because of you are the best team in the NFL the last decade, or the last 6-7 years, it's easy to revise history, or to not even revise history, to just act like history doesn't exist and make up your own new set of rules because you're in the driver's seat, essentially. But this idea that you guys have all started that, oh, other teams are just complaining, take your losses like a man, when there is so many videos that have been circulating of Chris Jones complaining about refs, Travis Kelce complaining about refs, Andy Reid complaining about refs, and of course, 15 Mahomes. We all remember the game. That's a bullshit call. Never seen that all. It didn't even impact the game. And this is the same man that's, again, Mahomes is great. He's in a class of his own, the greatest quarterback on the planet. He's going to be one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. He also hurt himself with that flop. If you want a public image, which does matter, and the public image of Mahomes post that flop when there's already discussions about how the refs treat you, doesn't look good. When you say, "I'll take your loss like a man," and we can all pull up videos before you guys are winning Super Bowls. Kelsey's complaining, Jones is complaining, Reed is complaining, Mahomes is complaining. Guess what? That's the dynasty. Those 4 guys, more than anybody else, they are attached to the dynasty. And also, sometimes, like I used to say this when Denver, during no-fly zone, those last couple years of Peyton, did Von Miller get away with offsides? You're damn right. And I didn't try to defend him from this perspective of, oh, he's just getting away with it, or saying, I didn't say, oh, he's not doing it. He's just better than you at counting snap. And he was great at counting snap. Vaughn, just saying. He also got away with it. Because Denver was one of the best teams in football. Vaughn was one of its best players, and one of the best players in football. So he got away with it. And I would just say to you, suck it up. Deal with it. Instead, Chiefs fans and people in Chiefs media, there's this belief that we just have to accept everything that they're doing as perfect and flawless. This is one of the things that irritate me when I say, like, bringing back the stories of sports, is all these number people who have, by the way, totally flipped their tone. There's numbers people who were, look at how Mahomes started his career, 50 touchdowns, MVP, look at his yards per attempt, look at his this, look at his that. Oh my gosh, he's so great. He's even better than Brady because he has the stats to back it up as a driving force, which Brady didn't have the first New England dynasty. And now that he no longer has those numbers, and the league has relatively figured him out as far as being the most explosive quarterback of all time, now it's, well, he wins. He's doing what you can do to win. Okay, so where was that? Anyway, Chiefs fans don't have to accept kiss the ring culture. That's the reality of it. Ben Johnson to Chicago. So, Ben, this is proof of, and we're going to talk about some other coaching hires here too, as well as some jobs that are just no one wants to touch, which I totally understand when no one wants to touch. Bad jobs. But Ben in Chicago, I think this is, this feels very boom or bust. So, Tony, if you remember, go listen to the group chat podcast. Tony said when we were doing draft analysis about Caleb is that it was going to be boom or bust. The kind of player he was, because of his ability to extend plays, that was either going to work or it wasn't. Because of his ability to make high-level throws, that also means the risk involved with high-level throws is much greater than low-level throws. So he was going to be risky, extending plays, doing all these things, similar to early Mahomes, in which it's either going to be the greatest thing we've ever seen, early Mahomes, or it's going to be like a million other quarterbacks who have tried that beforehand and it doesn't work out very well. That was the reality with Caleb Williams. And Tony said that, and I agree. I believe that became his reality, and we saw a lot of that. We saw a lot of, when it looks great, it looks great, and when it looks bad, man, it looked bad. We saw overthrows, underthrows, all these different things, but we also saw the highlight and flash plays that made you go, oh yeah, this is why this guy was the number 1 overall pick. This is why this guy was the generational prospect in the draft. Boom, 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 right? And so I say all that to say Ben Johnson's giving me a lot of that too. Now, Ben Johnson's, it's not that like this year was so dominant for Detroit and that's why he got a head coaching job. It was the fact Ben Johnson's claim to fame is really the Jared Goff reclamation project. When Jared Goff was traded from LA to Detroit, most people thought his career was over. Everybody's like, it was because it was not just that you were being traded as a number 1 overall pick after just having been signed. It was also the coach that traded you away, Sean McVay, someone who's extremely well respected, someone who's extremely well thought of, and someone who has pull in this league. Just go look at the coordinators that have been hired from his staff that have turned into head coaches. So a guy that we all look at and go, he knows ball. Real smart dude. He knows, he gets it. And he traded you away? So the fact that Jared Goff, even before this season, got to Pro Bowl-esque level. This year he arguably played an MVP-esque level if you just look at numbers. But got to a Pro Bowl-esque level after everybody thought he was done, including himself. There's a quote from the interview where he said he went to Dan Campbell's office thinking he was getting benched. And then he left going, oh my gosh, I'm ready. Because Dan Campbell, gave him the confidence to say, hey, look, you're our guy. So that's Ben Johnson's claim to fame, and that's why he got this job. So there's obviously going to be, the Bears are not as talented as the Lions, even on offense. They don't have that offensive line, which allowed Ben to do a lot of stuff. That will shape its way. That'll play its way out, and again, to acquire more talent, et cetera, et cetera. And I believe Ben will be a good head coach. But there's a lot of risk here. Because what was Ben's other claim to fame? This year especially. Trick plays. Doing all these gadget plays, trick plays, new concepts. All these things that were unique to the Lions and almost made you feel like Ben Johnson just knew more than everybody. He was just on top of it. His ability to watch the defense and know when to call these. Now, a lot of them did happen also against the Bears, which were a great team last year. So I say all that to say, Ben, if you think you could do that, and then his opening press conference, he's like, I enjoyed beating Matt LaFleur twice a year. Like, Matt LaFleur is also one of the best head coaches in the NFL. He's also one of the best offensive minds in the NFL, and he has proven success as a head coach that you don't have yet. And trust me, that clip will go triple platinum on Twitter the second you guys lose the game to the Packers, which is very likely. Their quarterback, as things currently stand, is better. Their team, as currently stands, is better. And they are the better franchise, as things currently stand. So now I've got boom or bust because of the aggressiveness, the trick call playing, the outside-the-box thinking. And then I've got the quarterback who wants to extend plays, wants to make big plays, high-level throws. There's a lot of boom or bust here. And now, I like the move still because I think the biggest part of this move is the fact that you took Ben Johnson from Detroit. So if you do plan on competing in that division, you just took one of the best coordinators from one of your biggest competition, and that does matter. I think it's also going to create this instance of, let's say Ben Johnson is good. Just hear me out for a second, then we're going to go to break. If Ben Johnson is good, how are franchises, this is how you're going to figure out who's well run and who's not. If Ben Johnson's a great coach, and we all know LaFleur's a great coach, and we all know O'Connell's a great coach, and we all know Campbell's a great coach, are we just going to fire the guy who finishes in 4th place in 2 years? Like, if these 4 teams, which we all believe are going to continue to have success, none of them are going to be horrible, and I've got Dan Campbell, O'Connell, Ben Johnson, and LaFleur, what ownership group is going to have the balls and going to have the hindsight to go, we're not just getting rid of you because you were in 4th place? We understand maybe you're 4th place because you had too many injuries that year. Maybe you're 4th place because somebody got on a hot streak on the other team. Like, you're going to find out in the NFC North because that's 4 legitimate great head coaches if Ben Johnson works. We're going to find out who in ownership actually knows what they're doing, who's actually has the right football people in the building to know if we fire Coach X, Can we actually get better than them? Can we actually get better than O'Connell? Can we actually get better than LaFleur? Can we actually get better than Ben Johnson? And all of these guys are still relatively new. You're not going to have, Tony and I talk about this, you're not going to have a situation like Baltimore and Pittsburgh where we know they have two great head coaches, but maybe it's just time because they've been there for over a decade. I fully believe you could just run to an instance where it's, okay, too much time with one team, the voice, the message, it's old, you need to flip it over. But that's not going to be the situation with Campbell with the Lions, O'Connell with the Vikings, LaFleur with the Packers, or obviously Ben with the Bears. But there's a lot of more busts here. But if all four work, who finishes fourth, and does that cost you a job finishing fourth in potentially the best division in football? A lot more to talk about. Don't forget, top of the hour, we are going to be discussing as well, going through the stories of the NFC Championship team. When we come back, more coach analysis, more football, and even some NBA. This is HardFoul Radio. We'll be back momentarily.
you want to go the God route, you want to make it DBZ, fine. I don't think that's very interesting.
No, I agree.
And I think that like you can do these crazy like I think one of the things people hoped for with Boruto, and it was when we went to go see that movie years ago, and it's when we got like the manga announced and when they announced the show and everything.
hmm
And the hope was that it would go back to the roots of what made Naruto popular.
hmm
I just think the creators didn't understand what made Naruto good. For us,
No,
there's
I
gonna
agree.
be an audience of people that want ass kicking. I just don't think it's the fun. Like, I don't think that's fun. Oh,
It's
wow, Boruto has hands. And I'm like, but me too, man. Like, I don't know what. Like,
And with that, we are back. This is HardFoul Radio. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time here. This is kind of a just so I have an attempt for this is attempting a new part of the show, which is a deeper dive into college football this year, and part of that is due to the fact of semi-family, semi just trying to get into the sports, both college and both college basketball and football. This is my attempt. So, and with that, I am announcing myself firmly, so it's on camera, it's recorded, it's on a microphone. An Alabama fan for college football. In college basketball, I haven't really figured out yet. The football is, again, more family related, and so I have a personal obligation and a reasoning for why I'm choosing Alabama. With that said, though, is I do think there's a lot of college football purists who say what you want about the college football playoff, say what you want about the system as a whole. I think we are getting a little too close to just being professional football with worse players and younger players. So I've heard a bunch of people come out the last couple of weeks and say, you know what, if we're going to do college football like this, let's just turn it into essentially two large conferences, a bunch of little teams, and you can division them out inside the conference, and then they basically meet up at the national championship or the Super Bowl. That's not the purpose of college football. And again, I'm relatively new to this. I've never been the big college football guy. That's not my thing. But the idea that we just want a lesser product is simply not sustainable. We've had the USFL, we've had the XFL, we've had a bunch of other football leagues that aren't the NFL. And when you do that, when you have lesser NFL, we all kind of subjectively and subconsciously go, well, I could just watch the NFL. And it's not like we're at a loss for NFL games. Hell, they're adding more each season. Hell, we're getting more days that they're playing football. There's some weeks of the year. We got a week of the year where it was football on Tuesday, Thursday, or Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday, Sunday. It's everywhere. So just playing a lesser NFL isn't a great product. Because the reality is, and I know this is going to sound demeaning, this is going to sound super critical, but it's not. When it comes to high-level sports and high-level athleticism, stuff that is a product that is put on TV, we only want to see the high level. That's the truth. And I'll speak for myself. Nobody wants to see me in an NBA game. I might be tall enough. Nobody wants to see me. Because we only want to see the truly great and the truly spectacular. I've been on this for a while now. There is a superhuman-esque element that we all want to watch when we're watching sports. We want to see the guy who can jump 40 inches off the ground. We want to see the guy who can leap and make these crazy catches. We want to see the guy who could dunk from the free throw line. We want to see the guy who can moss someone as a receiver. We love, in some cases, to watch the super athletic and the super gifted. You don't want to watch just average. And the reality is, if you keep streamlining college football in this sense, all you're doing is you're getting more average football players, because the reality is, especially with NIL, teams aren't just loaded up anymore on 5-star players all around the board. because now there's no reason for it for all the 5-stars to go to Alabama and just sit in the wait for a year, because you know with Nick Saban and the process is going to get you as a first-round pick, et cetera, et cetera. Now with the NIL, if you're a 5-star guy and you're backing someone up, someone's going to pay you several $million to go to another school, to go to another university. There's no reason to sit in line and trust the quote-unquote old-school process. This is, and again, some of this is semi-secondhand, but conversations I'm at least aware enough I feel comfortable to talk about as I start to my training wheels into college sports. So the system being so different means there is no reason for 5-stars to wait. So the SEC, that's why they've been struggling, because it used to be all the 5-star guys would just be backups at an LSU and Alabama, because they knew that would still get them drafted. Those teams are so stacked. There was a reputation. Now, 5-stars are more spread out than they've ever been in college sports. They can all go get paid. And the reality is, excuse me, the reality is the closer we get to NFL-style formatting, seeding, championship games. Again, Ohio State just won the national championship. Congrats to them. But the way they did it was not the, if this was 10 years ago, they would not even been eligible for it. And if you just do lesser NFL, that's a lesser product on the screen. That leads to more blowouts. It leads to less competitive football. That leads to a less desirable product. Because all these universities aren't just stacked with 5-stars. So now you got the 2-star guys, the 3-star guys, the 4-star guys who just aren't as good. And because now we're just watching lesser NFL, that's going to turn us off. Because we had the USFL as a lesser NFL product. We had the XFL as a lesser NFL product. There's been all these different things to try to be close to the NFL, and they're just not. And there's a reason why none of them are still in business, why the NFL is the biggest product on television. So, and I'm not here, again, this is semi-taken from what a lot of purists and a lot of other people, when it comes to college, as I start to, again, my baby steps into college sports, I'm willing to listen to a lot more people. You guys heard me a bunch of times say, I get a lot of opinion and feedback from Tony, who's someone who has consistently watched college football, someone who's consistently watched college basketball. So I get a lot from there, and a lot of times I will reserve my own opinion in respect to someone that is just flat out more involved in the process than I am. So, but there is, it's just, again, lesser NFL doesn't work. With that being said, we're going to take a break here, and when we come back to start hour number 2, we are going to give the story of the NFC Championship game. This is HardFoul Radio. We'll be back momentarily. I'm joined, as always, by the Father Willis in the building. How we doing, man?
Sensational.
How was drinking after 40? I hear that shit hits harder.
Yo. Drinking at 40 is crazy. Number one, I never said I was. First, I'm 32. As of like a week and a half ago. Second, I didn't even say I was drinking. I just said I was outside.
So you gonna convince everybody you was outside and had no alcoholic beverages at all?
Nah. I'm just saying I never said I was drinking. I ain't say I wasn't either.
I understand. Understandable. This nigga said in the text message before we got on this shit talking about like, yo, I'm about to have a macchiato.
I did not say I was about to have a macchiato. Tony said something about Italian, so I just named it Italian.
I heard macchiato.
No, I said you can never go wrong with a macchiato. I got regular coffee though.
All right. Shout out to regular coffee, man. Appreciate that. We are here about to start hour 2 of HardFoul Radio. Appreciate everybody for stepping in, as always. So we started hour 1 with the story of the AFC Championship game. So we obviously had to do hour 2 with the story of the NFC Championship game. Let's start with Washington. Now, Washington I want to break down in 2 parts. There's the story of the current team, and then the story is the franchise as a whole. So Washington's story, why it's so cool, there's a handful of sports stories that have, if this ever happened, it's automatically this. If this ever happened, it's automatically the worst thing to ever happen. If this ever happened, it's automatically the best thing to ever happen. The worst thing to ever happen generally stems from career-ending injuries or shortened careers to all-time athletes. Bo Jackson going down, that's one of the worst things that ever happened to an athlete in his prime, a 2-sport star. And then there's, if this ever happens, it's the best thing. Jaden Daniels, who I know, because of my own allegiance to my team, as sometimes I said, wasn't the offensive rookie of the year. Excuse me, I'm a little biased towards a team I've rooted for 15 plus years. But what Jaden Daniels is doing is so incredible. And the storyline of rookie quarterback makes the Super Bowl has been available throughout all of NFL history. It has. Just all you got to do is get a rookie and get him to the Super Bowl. That easy, right? That story is so big and it would be so insane if you asked everybody at the start of this season, myself included, Tony and I, we did our preview show, both of us included, the Commanders would have been towards the bottom of this division, better than the Giants. That was it. Most people would have had Eagles, Cowboys. They were clearly the teams running the division. No one would have had the Commanders in this spot. And not just the rookie quarterback side of it all. The other rookie quarterbacks who have had actual success going far in their first playoff run as a rookie were carried by outright dominant defenses. Go to Big Ben in his rookie year. Go to Joe Flacco in his rookie year. Dominant defenses. Even if you want to go to someone like Purdy, when the San Francisco the defense was dominant, that's when they had the most success. These guys don't get there unless they have those defenses. Some of the greatest players to ever play the game, in Flacco's case, with Ray Lewis and Ed Reed. Jaden Daniels' defense is 28th. So when this story was, again, it's always been there. If you get your rookie quarterback to the Super Bowl, it's one of the greatest stories in the history of sports ever. Now we're getting a rookie quarterback there who was the driving force of their team. This isn't the NBA, where guys come out and immediately have great stats and immediately make a great impact. And even to those guys, playing both ways, playing heavy minutes, can immediately impact the team. Even they don't have great immediate playoff success as rookies. And they have more of an impact. They can hold the ball for a lot longer. They're playing both ways. They can just flat out impact the game more. Jaden Daniels is doing this with not a great defense. Coming into the season, only one receiver who was truly noteworthy in Terry McLaurin. And a head coach who had the title of retread at the time of hiring. Yes, he went to Dallas and rebuilt his image up a little bit, but Dan Quinn was not, in a world where everybody wants the young offensive genius, the brilliant offensive mind, your Ben Johnson, your Sean McVay, your Kevin O'Connell. Dan Quinn was not at the top of many people's lists. Dan Quinn was not the poster child for who I want to hire as my NFL head coach in 2025. So that story alone, the greatness of Jaden Daniels and getting your rookie quarterback to the Super Bowl, him being the driving force of how you got to the Super Bowl, that's incredible. That's going to go down if they win that game on Sunday. That's going to go down as one of the greatest stories in the history of sports. The other story that this Washington team has is something that I don't think this is a real life story. Don't be afraid of change. I know change can feel scary to a lot of people, not just sports, but it's just in real life. Change can be scary. People don't want to move out of their hometown. People don't want to move away from where they grew up. People don't want to do anything different. They want stuff to be the same. And I'm someone, speaking from my own personal point of view, I get into very long stretches, creature of habit, where I want to wake up and this be the routine. I want to have this. I want to have this. I want everything to be boom, 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 boom. But the reality is, a lot of us deal with adversity. A lot of us deal with stress. A lot of us deal with challenges. In fact, not just a lot of us, most of us, if not all of us. And change can be scary. But you can't break these things that you're struggling with unless you're willing to change. And no team has changed more than Washington. New owner, new head coach, new general manager, new quarterback, hell, new name. Over the last 5 years, no team across all 4 major sports have done what Washington has. And that took them from a joke of a franchise, a team no one wanted to talk about, an owner who was despised both amongst other owners, media, whoever. No one had a single good thing to say about Dan Snyder. Not a single good thing to say about him. And they were willing to, and a lot of people said in the offseason, and myself, I was kind of included, too much turnover, too much change. Well, if I scrap a house down, take it down to the studs and build it back up because everything was crappy beforehand, yeah, it's a lot of change. It's a lot of new. But all I did was get rid of bad stuff. All I did was get rid of crappy stuff. The Commanders are the team of change. They are the story of change. Everything's different than it was 5 years ago. This isn't retreading out guys. This isn't, recycling a story. Everything is new. Everything is different. That should be celebrated from in a franchise willing to overturn so much in such a short amount of time. Hell, they're on their 3rd name in the last 5 years. They were the Washington football team. What a horrible name, by the way. So the rookie quarterback, who is not only just the story of him getting to the Super Bowl, would already be an all-timer, but him being the driving force with not a great defense, 1-star receiver, a brand new head coach who's a retread. This is going to go down. If they make it, that's already one of the greatest rookie seasons of all time, if not the greatest rookie season of all time. But the story of Jaden Daniels taking a totally changed Washington team, this is how you start writing the storybook and the outline for, and I know this is a lot, so just hear me out. How you start greatest career ever, Jaden Daniels will have a claim at it. Because Brady didn't do this as a rookie. Mahomes didn't do this as a rookie. They didn't start. Manning started. He led the league in interceptions. Joe Flacco got to an AFC Championship game, carried by his defense. Mark Sanchez got to an AFC Championship game, carried by his defense. Ben Roethlisberger got to an AFC Championship game, carried by his defense. So I have the quarterback carrying the team. I have the totally revamped, changed Washington. There's a lot here, man. Let's transition over to the story of the Philadelphia Eagles, which is, and I think the NFC is doing this as a whole, but Philly's just doing it the best. what you hear is not always true, and we know this. But what makes that really hard to understand at times is when a lot of people are telling you something. If a lot of people are telling you, hey, this, that, and the third, and they're all repeating it, and you're on this, it becomes this noise vacuum inside your head where it's just everyone in my vicinity, everyone in my area saying these same things. It almost makes it feel like, oh, this must be facts. This must be true. There's no way it can't be. When in reality, when reality, not the case. You could just be in an area, especially politics, this happens all the time. You could just be in an area or grow up in a family or a certain lifestyle, a certain community where they are this, and they just don't want to have to deal with the fact of they could be wrong. There could be other opinions. There could be other valid opinions. That really pisses people off. And there's other valid opinions out there that really takes them off. So we all know quarterback is super important. And I'm not here to tell you it's not. Quarterback can overcome a lot. You have a great quarterback, you can get away with a not so great defense or a not so great offensive line or a not so great receiving core. All these things are true. But what the NFC has done, because there's no true superhuman quarterback in the NFC, even as much as I like Stafford, the Eagles, the Niners are all kind of proving. I know the Niners were good this year. I'm referencing the Niners for the past couple of years when they made the Super Bowl. They're all kind of showing that, maybe you can just do everything else great and you don't need your quarterback to be great. You don't need your head coach to be great. Because I've been on this all week, all year, however many long it's been. I'm not crazy about Jalen Hurts. I'm not crazy about Nick Sirianni. But they're so great everywhere else, I wouldn't be shocked if they won a Super Bowl. And in the grand scheme of things, you're going to look back at this and you're going to go, Jalen Hurts, Nick Sirianni, with all due respect, how much better is this, if at all, than the last time Philly won a Super Bowl, which was with their then backup Nick Foles and head coach, now fired from his second franchise, Doug Peterson. Maybe you could just be great everywhere else and you can, like football used to be, if you were great in so many areas, you could just overcome the quarterback or you could overcome the head coach. Because quarterbacks make so much money, this is incredibly hard to do. But it was for years in the NFL. You could have a great defense. You could have a great offensive line. You could have you could be great in so many areas. And it didn't matter if your quarterback was great. We just referenced the rookies who made it the AFC Championship game as rookies. They had great O-lines, good receivers, and great defenses. Everywhere around them was fantastic. They were the weak link. And the Eagles are the epitome of this. And I know Jalen Hurts is hurt at the moment. You can tell just on the way he's playing, so I don't want to say he's never going to get back to where we thought he was a couple years ago. But it doesn't take away the fact of, look, he is struggling. Look, he ain't doing great right now. He is definitely not the strength of your team. People have been trying to use the narrative of, oh, how can Lamar be the MVP when it feels better when the ball's in Derrick Henry's hand? Well, how can we call Jalen Hurts a franchise quarterback when everybody is infinitely more scared of Saquon Barkley than they are of him? This is old school football at its finest. This is, we don't have to do what everybody else is doing just because everybody else says it's good. We don't have to do what everybody else is doing just because everyone else says it's right. Just because a lot of people are saying something, guess what? A lot of people can just be wrong. Crazy concept. A lot of people can just be wrong. And what the Eagles are doing, what the Niners did last year, what a lot of these NFC teams have done of late, even go back to Sean McVay's first Super Bowl back in 2019 against the Patriots. Jared Goff wasn't the strength of that team. You would have said he was the weak point. Even though he had a resurgent year under McVay, we didn't give Goff a lot of credit. This year's Lions team, a lot of people still didn't give Goff a lot of credit. They thought it was the offensive line and the receivers and the defense before they started to break down. Hired away both his coordinators. You know there's something there where the NFL is like, yeah, we actually think that the success is really in these guys, and he just happened to be there. So let's not, just because a lot of people are saying you have to be great at quarterback, you got to be great at head coach. Are the Eagles not proof that you can go against the norm? And a lot of people that go against the norm, and a lot historically, the people that are great in going against the norm, normally geniuses. And Howie Roseman, I've been on this 4 years for a fact. That's the best GM in football. The way he acquires talent, the way he builds a roster, the way he drafts, he's just better. Whatever his system is, he just has it figured out. That is the story of the NFC and both its teams. When we come back, a lot more coaching stuff to talk about. This is HardFoul Radio. We will be back momentarily. and some guys there on defense who are assets. So a theme I always talk about is optimism. I said this before the break. When you're a sports team, giving optimism, giving hope to your fan base, it's hard to say it's an obligation because it's a business, but it's what I would prefer. You know, I always say you could be bad and exciting, but don't be bad and boring. Like Bill Williams, he only played the one series, put up the 70 yards, but he looked as advertised. Jaden Daniels, same thing. If you're Washington, and Washington we've talked about, total reboot. New owner, new coach, new executives, everything's brand new. They just took everything out and said, hey, look, this is who we are going forward. Jaden Daniels, he has the big throw down the sideline, which supposedly the story is he was able to audible out of. He had the touchdown run. He looked as advertised. Drake May probably had the least optimistic part. Not a lot of throws, not any of the huge wow plays that the first two guys made, but still, he didn't look bad. Penix looked solid. He looked like he was in control. Guy, J.J. McCarthy, same thing here. 2 touchdowns. He probably looked the best in comparison. My guy, Bo Nix, I got $40 on him for this year. 15 to 21, touchdown. He looked like, again, he looked like a guy who it's what they considered Bo Nix to be. Damn straight he was. And we got our 40. Sorry, I had to do that. It's my guy. Like, no one wanted Bo. No one gave Bo any credit. Everyone wanted to shit on Bo. Cool, I'm with it. But let's also be factual when Bo does well. So, with that being said, last couple things I want to talk about here before we go out. The coaching hires, so Ben Johnson just got hired with Chicago. We talked about that earlier. Aaron Glenn got signed by the New York Jets. And those were the top 2 coaching candidates, bar none. We understand that. I like, though, the hire that was probably boring but feels the most, if we want to parallel, the most Dan Quinn of all the hires is Mike Vrabel to the Patriots. Now, I think there's some confusion here. I think people think that Mike is just another Belichick guy. Yes, he was a player under Belichick, but the difference between him and Mayo is Mayo was a player and then immediately became a coach, and his whole coaching existence and history and experience came from Bill. Where I think Mike is better is Mike has a proven track record. He's won. He's gotten to an AFC Championship game, and that's with Ryan Tannehill, a quarterback we don't think super highly of. So you have some immediate respect from the guys. You do have the immediate respect also of you did play, so there is that little bit of toughness factor, especially as a defensive player. So you have credibility there. There's just Mike has it, right? And I think his coaching hires, getting the defensive line coach, who's now is going to be his DC from the Lions, I think that's huge. And I also think that if you're Mike Vrabel, hiring back McDaniels from for New England, their offense coordinator, Josh McDaniels again to be their offense coordinator, I think that's really smart. Because there's, out of all the things that Kansas City has had during their dynastic run that's been great, obviously head coach, quarterback, D tackle, and tight end, we all know that. Probably the other piece of it is Steve Spagnuolo staying there for so long, not getting head coaching offers, and we'll see. Who knows if he's going to get one this season. But being potentially the best defensive coordinator and teams not pulling him away, that's been huge. Outright, that's been huge. Not losing your coordinators, like Detroit just had their first great season in forever, lost their first playoff game, and both coordinators are gone. Not even 48 hours later. So, like, that stuff matters. Not even a week later, not 48 hours. So getting Josh McDaniels, while I would normally say this is a retread hire, or, hey, it looks like we're still following that Belichick-esque line with Vrabel too. Vrabel never coached for Belichick. And Josh, I don't think another team's going to go out there and hire him. Maybe if the Patriots get their third dynasty of the century, fine. Then somebody will try to peel him away again. But I don't really think he's going to be a sought-after head coaching candidate, which means if you're Mike Vrabel and you believe in the culture that you can create and the system that you can have as a head coach, you have a long-term offensive coordinator, and you yourself coming from defense, and if you do lose this potential defensive coordinator, that's in your background as well. I get to pair my young quarterback with an OC who people say this. This is one of the biggest, so you can't just shit on coaches after they have their first losing season or after they start to have some lack of success. Belichick, McDaniels were clowned for what did they do without Brady? Do we all remember at one point during Mac Jones' rookie season, he was first place in the AFC? Not first place in the division. First place in the AFC. That was with Josh McDaniels and Bill Belichick coaching their ass off, and McDaniels getting it's essentially a fake one, a Pro Bowl season out of Mac Jones. How many guys could get a Pro Bowl season out of Mac Jones? So McDaniels, Vrabel, the new defensive coordinator from Detroit, there's a lot to like here about New England. This is a team, this is how quick it is, and Washington is proof of this. This is how quick it is to turn yourself around in the NFL, which is something it has over other sports. You go get your coach and your coordinator right, you get your quarterback right, you already have proven ownership in New England. These are all the steps to turning it around, and you can turn it around quick. So if McDaniels and May mesh, and May, who already showed flashes of how good he can be as a rookie, you got a bunch of money in free agency to bring in other guys, T. Higgins potentially, a few more guys on defense. You've now got your head coach that you believe in, a guy who's been to an AFC Championship game. This is going to be a really quick turnaround, especially with the Jets and Dolphins are just objectively going the wrong way. Yes, the Jets just hired Aaron Glenn, but there's a lot more there to fix up in New York. You have a bunch of disgruntled players. You have guys who were ascending and then took a step back in Sauce Gardner. You have a 40-year-old quarterback that you got to figure out, is he going to play football? Does he just want to do drugs? There's a lot more questions there. And in Miami, obviously, you're going to always have the Tua cold questions. You're going to have the how good is Tua even if he's there and it's warm weather. And now Tyreek Hill, who just flat out told the world, I don't want to be here after the season ended, and then his agent had to walk it back 7 days later. So there's a lot of issues. Those two teams regressing. The Patriots potentially they're not going to be what the Bills are. That's just they're too far away from them at the moment. But coach, quarterback, GM, offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, there's a lot here to like, and I think New England is going to turn this around a lot quicker than we thought. And there's a lot more optimism and hope that we just had that we did not exist 3 months ago in New England. Just flat out did not exist. There's a lot more optimism and hope today with Vrabel, McDaniels, Williams, like a lot more stuff to like here about New England. The worst coaching jobs, now I already kind of hit on this yesterday. The Raiders are in for hell. And there's one horrible job in both conferences. That's the Raiders' job in the AFC. Because you are heading into murderer's row as far as a coach-quarterback division. No one's scared in the AFC West. And I know the NFC North, Ben Johnson just went in there. He's familiar with the division. He also probably might feel a way of, I think I'm the reason Detroit was successful, so I know I'm punishing Detroit by coming over here. But it's Campbell and Goff, who we've just talked about Goff multiple times in this episode of how good is Goff without an elite offensive coordinator. We'll find out. Sam Darnold, is that who Minnesota's bringing back, or are they going to J.J. McCarthy? Is Sam going to be able to repeat this on his second year, or is J.J. as a true rookie, how is he going to play? And Jordan Love, who I know a lot of people do love, a lot of people have ranked really high, still doesn't have a complete season of good football. So that's a different context than dealing with Reed and Mahomes, Harbaugh and Herbert, and even though you might not love him, we all know Sean Payton's elite, and Bo Nix, who just had the second most touchdowns ever for a rookie quarterback. So that, when you're the Raiders, and again, Chicago's all slightly different because even though Ben was re-entering or moving himself around in a tough-ass division, he gets Caleb Williams. There's no Caleb Williams on the Raiders. You have Brock Bowers. That's a really nice piece. You have Max Crosby. That's a really nice piece. And then it's hard to get, if you're an average NFL fan, you start running out of names after those two guys. And so I've got to deal with 3 Hall of Fame head coaches, potentially the best coach in the sport, maybe 3 of the best 5, 3 of the best 6, depending on how you want to really get there and rank coaches. Those are the best coaches in the sport, that division. That's tough. And a lot of people aren't going to want to deal with that. It's the Raiders' next hire is going to feel like if they can't get the quarterback, and there's going to be 2 drafts in a row. Remember, Brock Bowers taken 13th. So he was the first player taken after the 6 quarterbacks all went. So you missed out on the quarterback last year. You potentially miss out on one this year. And if you don't have the guy, whoever takes this job is going to feel like a get your guaranteed money as much as you can, because this is going to be a 1-year move off. Try to draft a quarterback next year. Try to get another OC or another guy to become your head coach after that. This is going to be a rough transition year. I know Tom just got there, and there's some excitement about what he could do potentially. Tom Brady's the GOAT. He can't fix this. And maybe I'll eat these words. Maybe I'll regret this, and they'll have a season for the ages. But that's what they're going to need. You have 2 clear primetime players, which is the same as you had coming into last year. You had Devontae Adams, you had Max Crosby. Now it's Bowers and Crosby. You've got a good, not great O-line. You've got a good, not great D-line. You're not really great anywhere outside of those 2 players. And you're definitely not great at quarterback. You're not even good at quarterback. And you're dealing with a division who has best quarterback in the sport. Another guy's got the talent of a top 5. Another guy coming off the second best rookie season out of this 6 quarterback class. And 3 great head coaches. That's tough. And in the NFC, I know there was a lot of talk that Aaron Glenn was potentially in for the Saints job. And then, all these other, Mike Vrabel was potentially. Nobody's going to want to coach the Saints at the moment. And as someone who was a fan of a New Orleans sports franchise, I cannot tell you the difference between where the Pelicans, even with this injury-riddled season from hell, and where the Saints stand. The Pelicans, I hope they don't fire Willie Green. I don't think Willie Green's the problem. But if they were to move on from their coach, another coach going into that situation has Zion Williamson, Trey Murphy, DeJounte Murray, Yves Messi, Jose Alvarado, Jordan Hawkins. There's talent, there's flexibility as far as cap, especially because Ingram's contract is most likely not going to be there this year. They're most likely going to part. The Saints are in cap hell. Their best players are old, and or even in case of Marshawn Lattimore, traded him away. Your quarterback is expensive. I don't want to say not good, but he's on the lower end of good if we're calling him good still in Derek Carr. You have a disgruntled receiver who's coming off an injury. Like, there's a lot here that is going to be, again, if I'm the Saints, I would just keep Rizzy, struggle it out for 2 years as you go through. You got to eat all that. Again, the Saints are in cap hell because they did all of this funny money movement at the end of Drew Brees' career. I don't fault them for that. Drew Brees is one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever play the game. If you have a chance to win a Super Bowl, you do it. So you did all that, but now it's like a credit card. You gotta start paying up, man. And the Saints gotta start paying up. So it's gonna be rough. I think the Raiders and the Saints are just 2 awful head coach openings right now. Not saying that someone can't turn them around, that there's no hope for the franchises, but 2025 is gonna be a rough year. And again, with the AFC West, you're running into that coaching gauntlet. In the NFC South, not a great division, but you're in cap hell. Your best players are past their prime. Your quarterback's definitively past their prime. Disgruntled receiver who just coming off an injury. Traded away Marshall. There's just a lot going wrong in New Orleans right now, man. When we come back, we are going to celebrate the 19-year anniversary of one of the greatest NBA games and NBA game recaps of all time. This is HardFoul Radio. We will be back momentarily. And we are back to finish it up. So as we said to start the show, stories in sports. And it's one of those things that I love because it's what I grew up on. And there's just certain I'll be able to explain it a little bit better here in a minute, but there's just things that you can't truly put a number on or put just a singular idea on. You almost, when they say you had to be there, they're truly you had to be there moments. Which is why stories are so cool, is because really good stories can capture that feeling of you had to be there. I talk all the time. I wasn't there. I didn't watch the game. But it's the 19-year anniversary of Kobe Bryant's 81-point game. And what's almost as cool as the 81-point game itself is the story of the 81-point game. The trash talking, the almost revisionist of Kobe watching it himself and tweeting early on. Jalen Rose, the dynamic there. And rest in peace. Now, you have to understand this. Rest in peace to both Kobe Bryant and the next person I'm about to talk about, Stuart Scott. This game was so big. Forget the stats, which the 81 points are amazing and an all-time thing. Forget the numbers. Like, the Lakers' record. No one knows the Lakers' record at that game. No one knows the Raptors' record. Forget the whole idea of it's like, well, did you win a title or did you not? Forget the narratives. This game, and Kobe's done this twice. Kobe did this twice. By today's standards, meaningless NBA game. Kobe was the first story on SportsCenter on Conference Championship Sunday. Stuart Scott led off the show. Multiple jump shots, the three-pointers, the score at halftime, the Lakers come back in just this way that only he could. He told a story. The story of Kobe Bryant's 81-point game, and the way he broke it down wasn't just writing off numbers, wasn't just feeding into a narrative. It was a moment that was created by Kobe Bryant, narrated by Stuart Scott, and you just can't forget stuff like that. You can't just not have, like, that's part of sports. Those stories, those memories, those creations, those are a part of sports, and they're beautiful. And the fact we've gotten so far away from them is truly, it shouldn't be this frustrating, but it is. Conference championship, again, a NBA player who took away from the NFL leading off SportsCenter on Conference Championship Sunday. This same NBA player in his final NBA game, the same night the Warriors are going for 73 wins, an NBA record. Everybody's watching him score 60. Those are moments created by the players, narrated by what used to be a bunch of respected journalists in SportsCenter, these other news networks doing sports. It was an all-timer. Both, but we're specifically discussing the 81-point game because it's the 19-year anniversary. We don't have that anymore. There's no one you could go to. There's obviously there's still legends who are alive who have done this who just aren't as active anymore, and I'm not trying to discredit them. But so much of what sports has become is, and especially sports media has become, can you be an asshole? Can you be funny? Can you make a good headline? Can you give a good hot take? I'll be real, I'm probably not that good at any of them. But that's not what I grew up on. That's not what I enjoyed. That's not what I loved. The story, again, we've done it all episode. The story of the Kansas City Chiefs, the story of the Buffalo Bills, the team that is just always so close but has all these heartbreaking moments, 4 straight Super Bowl losses. The Chiefs, their turn in the long list of dynasties, putting themselves up there with the Cowboys and the great O-line and the Steelers' great defense and the Niners, Montana Rice, Brady Belichick. Now Mahomes, Reed, Kelsey. The NFC. The story of what Jaden Daniels can do as a rookie quarterback, something we've never seen, potentially we've never seen ever, which is get to a Super Bowl, even potentially win the Super Bowl. The Eagles throwing out the narrative of you have to be excellent at head coach and quarterback. No, what if you're just great everywhere else? I'm not just here to give you numbers. You could look that up on your own. I'm not just here to give you stats. You can look that up on your own. I'm not just here to give you a narrative or a headline. You could make those up on your own. We're coming off a divisional weekend where two great all-time quarterbacks, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, and people just couldn't wait to rip whoever lost. Rest in peace. There's no more Stuart Scotts who can break down. Do you need great, like, how would, this is where I think we're losing it. How would you describe Kobe's 81-point game today? Well, the way current media moves, it would be well, that's a lot of points, but Kobe always does that. What's the Lakers' record? Is it leading to wins? What's he done since Shaq? We didn't care about any of that on that night. No one gave a rip. You still don't know what the Lakers' record is. We remember Kobe. Remember Jalen Rose that night. Remember the announcers. Remember Stuart Scott. The core part of that story, that moment in time. I remember Steph going 54 in the Garden. That leading off SportsCenter. I remember Steph versus OKC, that shot. We discussed this on group chat a few weeks ago. The idea of these people that go on Twitter and go, well, let's just compare stats and this person's stats versus this person's MVP season. I don't know the numbers of Michael Jordan's MVP season. I don't know the numbers of Steph Curry's MVP season. It was just different. I don't know what Steph averaged when he was the unanimous MVP, but I knew he was the best player on the court. I knew that Warriors team was special. I don't know what they averaged when he got to, I don't know what he averaged when him and KD went back to back and they were just sweeping everybody. But I knew they were special. I knew they're the best team in the NBA. We've gotten so fixated on either being numbers or hot takes or can you be clever or an asshole? We wouldn't have this game one of the greatest, and it's how you know the greatest moments in sports history. What's so unfortunate about them is they're almost gone to us because we don't have someone who is going to retell these stories in a way that's not just patronizing or an asshole or just reading off a bunch of stats. If Mahomes gets a three-peat, we're going to have Nick Wright on TV gloating for a day. Nick Wright has nothing to do with the Kansas City Chiefs besides being a fan. If the Commanders win, we should have a bunch of people shit-talking the Cowboys because, oh my gosh, you let the Commanders draft a rookie and get to a Super Bowl before you? Stephen A. Smith, I'm looking at you. Like, let's not lose some of these great stories. It's the 19-year anniversary of Kobe Bryant dropping 81. And we all remember it. We remember how it was told. Remember watching it. Again, I didn't watch it in real time, unfortunately, but I remember seeing the replays. They used to play them almost every Sunday night. It was that legendary of a game. Don't know the records. Don't know the exact shots. We all remember 81, but we don't remember the exact statistics of the game. I don't know what his field goal percentage was. It was a beautiful moment. It was a wonderful story and a wonderful time. Let's get back to that, man. That being said, this is HardFoul Radio. I appreciate everybody that stopped by today. We are off until you will see me again Friday or Saturday, depending on when we get together to do A&M. I know it's been a few weeks. We're supposed to get a new One Piece chapter this week, so I'm really excited about that. With that being said, appreciate everybody as always. Remember, this is a show that values time.